It's somewhat common for narratives to use religious imagery, though the purpose is to comment on events within the story rather than to develop the themes. One example would be the shower scene from Psycho. So when characters are, for whatever reason, dunked in water, that can often be a symbolic baptism. Okay, no, not every single time a character gets wet is because they're metaphorically being baptized, but anyway, looking at the Psycho example, at this point in the story, Marion Crane has stolen a bunch of money from her work and is on the run. She then stops at this motel, and after talking to the manager, she decides, no, what I did was wrong, and decides to go back and face the consequences. But first, she decides to take a shower, and, well, we all know how that turned out. But in this part of the story, Marion has essentially sinned, and is now trying to atone for her sins by returning and facing the consequences. So, by voluntarily taking a shower, she is quite literally being baptized or washing away her sins. So, by having her be killed while taking a shower, this is basically Hitchcock saying, no, you don't get to be redeemed. This is how religious imagery is commonly used in fiction. But the Apple TV Plus original series, Severance, uses religious imagery instead as a part of its core themes. Because when you start watching Severance, at first it seems that the company, Lumon, is a strange but typical sci-fi company. But as you continue watching it, you begin to realize, wait, this isn't a company. This is a cult. Severance follows a group of employees who work at the fictional company Lumon, whose work is so sensitive that they require many of their employees to undergo a procedure known as severance, where their work memories are separated from their regular memories. Their work selves, referred to as innies, have no recollection of who they really are or the outside world, and because of the way Severance works, they are seemingly in a perpetuate state of work. They enter the elevator at 5 in the evening, and then suddenly it's 9 a.m. the next day. As they remark, they don't even get to experience sleep. Meanwhile, their outside selves, referred to as outies, have no memory of their jobs. From their perspective, they get in the elevator at 9 a.m., and then suddenly it's 5. Also, side note, one sort of criticism I've seen made towards Severance that at first I used to agree with was the fact that, despite the fact that Lumon's work is apparently so sensitive that they require their employees to go through this rigorous and extreme procedure, the work that the characters seem to be doing doesn't seem to be sensitive at all. In fact, we're not even sure what it is exactly they're doing. Even the characters don't know what they're doing. But while recording the audio for this video, I realized that I think this is supposed to be a representation, since essentially the severed workers have no context as to anything that's going on in the outside world. Therefore, they wouldn't really know the context of the work that they're doing. Therefore, we, the audience, also don't understand exactly what they're doing. My guess is that if we were to see this work from a more objective point of view, we would understand what they're doing, and we would see it as sensitive. But because the workers don't understand what they're doing because of the severance procedure, we don't understand it either. Anyway, back to the video. Considering that this is one of the most intriguing science fiction concepts in years, naturally everyone has grasped onto how Severance explores the connection between memory and our individuality. That we are not ourselves without our memory. To be fair, this is a genuine theme that the series wants to explore. It's no accident that this is the very first line spoken in the series.
Who are you?
But I think so many people got caught up in the cool sci-fi concept that they missed the other major point the show is trying to make, which is strange because I feel like it's almost even more obvious. As Severance is really a critique of work culture. Well, okay, some people have written on this, but I feel that more people are interested in Severance's take on memory, which is interesting because I think that the show's primary focus is tackling work culture, whereas memory is a secondary objective. But before we get into how Severance critiques work culture, let's get into why I think Lumon is a cult. Okay, I don't mean Lumon is literally a cult, but Lumon operates so closely to a cult that they would probably qualify if they simply didn't pay their employees. First, let's talk religious imagery. There's a joke that goes, cult plus time equals religion. The joke being that often cults share many similarities with religion. So, Severance contains many subtle references towards religion. First is the company's founder, Keir Egan. Egan is often referred to in the same manner as a god from the Lumon workers.
He doesn't just speak to us through the handbook, the paintings. He finds other ways.
Even the higher-ups refer to him as so.
Keir, brilliant one, Keir, brings the bounty to the plain, through the torment, through the rains. Progress, knowledge, show no fear.
And to be fair, for the Severed employees, Egan might as well be their god. With no knowledge or recollection or even visuals of the outside world, Egan quite literally created the entire world that they know. If it weren't for the Severance program, the innies wouldn't even exist. Egan basically created their lives and existence, so for the innies, Egan is the closest to a god that they will ever know. Not only is Egan referred to as a god throughout the series, but Egan's word is treated as gospel. This is seen with the employee's handbook. We usually don't see the handbook, but we often hear it quoted, particularly from the characters of Irving and Bert, who are probably the most devoted to Egan. The handbook hardly sounds like an actual handbook, and instead sounds way more like a religious text. It even took me multiple times to realize that they weren't quoting Bible verses.
I know the handbook, old man. I'm more of a first edition guy. Original word of Keir. And I shall whisper to ye, dutiful through the ages. In your noblest thoughts and epiphanies shall be my voice. You are my mouth. And through ye, I will whisper on when I am 10 centuries devised.
We also see subtle religious references with the paintings. You'd be forgiven if, at the beginning of the series, you assumed that many of the paintings were real, but the paintings are often that of Egan, depicting moments of his life or his ideologies. However, the paintings are clearly inspired and are reminiscent of Renaissance paintings, especially those with religious contexts. But Severance isn't equating work with religion. After all, Severance wants to criticize work culture, and religion can often be a positive influence on people's lives. Instead, Severance's Lumon seems to operate closer to a cult than a typical religion. So, what is a cult? Now, for starters, a cult doesn't necessarily have to be religious, though Severance definitely wants you to associate its cult status with religion. More on that later. But a cult is essentially a group of people committed to an extreme ideology, usually to a charismatic leader such as Egan. The more I looked into cults in preparation for this video, the more that Lumon seemed to fit the bill. First, cults target various people, but one of which are people who have suffered personal loss. Of course, a huge subplot of the series is how the protagonist, Mark, lost his wife, which is eventually what made him want to work for the Severed program at Lumon. Cults also control their members by various means, including financially and through living arrangements, which, no surprise, Mark lives in Lumon-provided housing. But that control is what Severance is primarily interested in. One tactic of cults is that they separate their members from loved ones, such as friends or family, which is, exactly what Lumon does. Because of the Severance procedure, innies have absolutely no recollection of their outside selves. They have no idea who their friends or families are, or even if they have friends or families on the outside to begin with. The severed floor can be seen as a representation of that type of control. Everything is underground. There are no windows showing the outside, with the only two exits causing the innies to lose consciousness to their outside selves. The show does an excellent job of depicting what that's like, especially in the first episode. It seems as though they can't ever leave. The severed floor is defined by control, which only becomes more strict as the show progresses. Employees are heavily monitored. Even their outside selves are continuously monitored by Lumon's higher-ups. Mark's unsevered boss, Miss Cobell, goes undercover as his neighbor, Mrs. Selvig, using this persona to heavily monitor Mark's personal life. Any amount of personal issues are met with suspicion by Mark's employers. Even him calling in sick raises cause for concern. Cults also highly discourage any form of questioning or disobedience. Lumen employees are kept in the dark as to what they actually do at Lumen. What Lumen is up to is still a mystery even to the audience. Any form of disobedience means that employees have to go to the break room, a use of psychological torture in order to keep the employees in line.
I read it 300 times yesterday.
259. Again, please. Now.
I really am sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
No paraphrasing. Again.
But other forms of manipulation are also used as well. Departments are kept insanely apart from each other, and rumors are spread about violence committed by other departments.
O&D tried a violent coup on the others decades ago, and that's why they reduced them down to 2, and that's why they keep us all so far apart now.
That's an absolute fiction.
Did they ever kill anyone?
Nope. There was no coup. No one killed anyone.
Then why don't we ever hang out?
I mean, I'm 99% sure there was no coup.
Fake paintings of said violence are accidentally shown to Irving when he begins spending too much time visiting Bert from another department.
I'm sorry, Irving. We must have sent this print job here by mistake. You weren't supposed to see this.
What are these?
You ran a 266 on Irving B?
Yeah. Just now.
Huh.
I thought it might dissuade him from spending so much time with Bert G.
Leaving Lumen, like leaving a cult, is essentially made impossible. Like I said, because of how the severance procedure works, the innies cannot experience consciousness anywhere outside of the office. But Lumen also makes quitting next to impossible. Any resignation request has to get approved by one's outie, but since outies are experiencing the luxury of not having to work again, they almost always get denied.
Hallie, I watched your video asking that I resign. I also received and responded to your previous request. I assumed that would resolve the issue, but I understand that you're unhappy with the life that you've been given. But you know what? Eventually we all have to accept reality. So, here it is. I am a person. You are not. I make the decisions. You do not.
Hallie does everything in her power to escape Lumen, but even after resigning, threatening to mutilate herself, or even committing suicide, she still can't ever leave. Not to mention that Lumen makes communication with the outside world impossible. Exits strictly forbid any written messages from being carried outside, and even have pretty intricate systems for detecting them. Even a simple "I quit" raises the alarms. This makes sense. If Lumen is having their employees deal with sensitive information, they wouldn't want that leaking. But it also means that Lumen can do whatever they want to their employees, and there's absolutely nothing the employees can do to tell anyone about it. But Lumen is not just a cult. It's my theory that Lumen is a satanic cult. Again, Lumen isn't literally a satanic cult, but there are allusions equating the severed floor to hell and Lumen's work with something satanic. First, there are many references to severed floor as being hell. Hallie frequently refers to the workplace as being hell.
Am I dead?
No.
This isn't like hell or something?
No.
Well, boss, guess this is the part where I should tell you to go to hell. Except you're already here.
The pilot episode is even called Good News About Hell. Plus, it's a subtle notion that the employees have to go down to get to the severed floor, not up. And the waffle party seems to be closer to some sort of satanic ritual than anything. But the other clue that Lumen is hell is the show's biggest WTF moment, the goats. While wandering around the severed floor, Mark and Hallie come across a man raising baby goats. It's the most confounding moment in the season, and the show never offers an explanation, but the goats are yet another religious reference, or should I say, satanic reference. Like water, goats in fiction are often a religious reference. Goats can usually be seen as a reference to the statue of Baphomet, owned by the Satanic Temple. So goats in fiction are often symbolic of Satan, which I think is safe to assume what the goats in Severance are supposed to represent. So Lumon is pretty much a cult. That much is obvious. Through the cult references, Severance is able to make its point about work culture. Work is a cult. Founders of companies are worshipped like cult leaders. Companies require employees to have an almost cult-like devotion to the company. Relationship building breaks and events are planned to boost morale, but they're done so in the interest of the company, not the employees. Throughout Severance, there are many moments in which small parties or events are planned for severed workers, but they often feel fake or phony. My favorite is this moment in the beginning of the series where severed employees have to go around sharing facts about themselves, despite the fact that they have no memories of their outside selves and they have practically known each other for their entire lives that they know of. If this isn't a useless activity, I don't know what is. The one guiding hope for the severed workers comes in the form of a self-help book, The You Are, written by Mark's brother-in-law, Rickon. The book, like the series itself, is a critique of work culture, and is essentially a savior for Mark for him to realize how he's basically in a cult. On the cover of the book, Rickon is portrayed in an almost religious-like way, and the book probably has the most profound sentence stated by the entire series.
Your job needs you, not the other way around.
That's the real point Severance wants to make. Companies require employees in order to function, but people never have to be tied down to one job like they assume. With the severance procedure, Lumon has essentially created the ideal situation for companies. Employees are, while at work, completely unburdened by their regular lives, made for the sole purpose of working for the company. But by doing so, Lumon has basically dehumanized their employees as much as possible. Ultimately, the commentary that Severance wants to put forth is that companies don't generally care about their employees. Any care for their well-being is ultimately done so in the best interest of the company, not the individual. Workers are valued purely for the work they put in, and nothing more. This is why the employees at Lumon are dehumanized. The work is all that matters. Who does the work doesn't matter. The Season 1 finale, The We Are, is simply one of the best television finales I've seen, as basically a 1-hour non-stop tension-filled episode made solely for the purpose of the severed workers discovering who they really are, essentially regaining their lost humanity. Which is why the higher-ups at Lumon want to stop them. The dehumanized employees regaining their humanity means that they will no longer be the mindless worker bees that they were before, but instead full people. Severance is arguing that companies essentially don't value their employees as people, but rather as commodities. So the show figuratively and, by the end, literally demands that companies respect and value their employees as actual people. People are more than what work they can do, and deserve to be valued as such.
Listen, we're not happy. We're miserable. They torture us down there. Damn it! Please! We're prisoners!